Hey, what's up? Well, what do you know? I'm finding a rare opportunity to make a video and not have to be quiet. Sorry about how I have to keep it down, while my dad is asleep, but that's the reason why my voice is so soft and breathy in so many of my videos, and I feel like it's delaying my recovery. You know, like as I've stated before, I can be hoarse for up to a month, but I feel like I don't recover fast because I have to, talk softly so much in these videos. So anyway, one thing I forgot. See, this is what I mean. Every time I do an unboxing, I seem to forget at least one thing. One thing I forgot that I had ordered was some really cheap clearance price Mardi Gras earrings, which is why I'm not wearing any at the moment. You see, they got the little fleur-de-lis, the Mardi Gras rainbow, which is purple, yellow, and green, basically the real rainbow minus, yeah, it's like the rainbow minus red, orange, and blue, minus Rob. It's like, yeah. So you have purple, yellow, and green. And they have the little jester hats and the fleur-de-lis. But what's odd is that you wouldn't think that they would have Mardi Gras stuff, because, there's primarily only one state that really makes a big deal out of Mardi Gras. And I'm not going to tell you which one it is because you probably know. And if you don't know, then that's better for me because it's unsafe for people to know exactly where I live and, where I'm making these videos. So, but you can imagine. I'm sure you can imagine, the only state in the U.S. that gives kids a few days off for a week for Mardi Gras. And so, yeah, next year I'll be able to let the good times roll and perhaps I won't be sick. So yeah, that makes it impossible to forget that I was sick, I'm pretty sure the first time in my 40s and hopefully the last time at age 40. Hopefully I'll be at least 41 the next time I get sick like that. So, but I really don't know because my little sister came down with it. And if we'd been together at some point, I would say that I gave it to her, but I can't say that because we never met. So anyway, what I'd like to talk about in this video, it's like my short-term memory. I might have to have this one come out in March or something because my short-term memory is just so bad. See, that's where it's really starting to bother me, is that I can't remember things short-term, okay? And there's just so many things. It's like every time I make a video, I think, well, I forgot to do this, that, or the other. I forgot to say this. I forgot to complete that thought. And part of it is that I have attention deficit, and I get distracted. And so, yeah, it's like I'm OCD and attention deficit. So what I really wanted to talk about, I wanted to elaborate more on the Winston Torres doll and, just more proof that his head is way too big. And I want to say that something that people don't really talk about much is how the head circumference really does not change that much. Like, your head is something that first of all, your brain is the first thing to form in utero, okay? And, it is the heaviest thing on a baby's body. The weight is all concentrated in the baby's head. But, what people don't really notice or talk about is how proportionally your head, as a child grows and matures, it becomes a lower percentage of the body in size due to the fact that it doesn't grow, much after, I want to say, well, the first 3 years, any growth that it does outside of the womb is mostly in the first 3 years of life. That's why babies have these soft spots in the top of their head, because their cranium hasn't fused together. And I want to say around age 6 or 7, for sure by age 7, their brain is about 98% the size of an adult. And that's why this frontal suture, like, you know how you have all these, like, cracks in your skull, so that, like, if your brain swells, it doesn't just break your skull immediately. It's sort of like expansion belts in the concrete. So you have all these sutures in your skull. But, the skull of a child under 6 would have one of those sutures right there in the middle of their forehead. Well, that fuses together by the age of 7, when the brain is 98% as big as it's ever going to be. And then guess what? By the age of 12 or 13, it's nearly 100%, if not 100%. It's certainly within the adult range. It's certainly like as big as some adults' head. And that's why your hat size doesn't really change that much. A hat is a very easy thing to sell in comparison to other articles of clothing, and sunglasses too, because your head doesn't really grow that much once you get well into your school years. I'm still able to wear old glasses that had the name of my elementary, middle, and high school on it. And these date back to the early 90s. I was wearing them then and I can wear them now. So yeah, it's like, and that's what I want to talk about, is how, like, I wish I could title this video like I hate cartoons, or how, I'm just, the older I get, the less I like cartoons, the less I can tolerate them, and I see them as a ruination of childhood. They're a ruination of how kids see the world, and what I mean by that is, they just begin to live in these fantasy worlds, depending on which cartoons they watch and like, and some of them are worse than others, as I've talked about before. If it were only cartoons that were basically animated versions of real life, and everybody was proportioned about the same as a real human, and animals didn't talk, that's one thing I have never liked, is personification. Which is why it took until my sister getting into Rugrats for me to ever really get much into cartoons. The only ones I could really tolerate were maybe a few Disney movies. And the more the animals or inanimate objects talked, the less I liked it. You know what I'm saying? Beauty and the Beast was really only good near the end. So yeah, it's like, the less realistic, the less I like it. And I just want to talk about, how Winston Torres is just not proportioned right. Well, basically, he would need to be, like, if he's a 1/5 doll, I guess that means he's about 25 or 20% too big or something like that. Let's see, 5 times 6 is what? 30 or something. So I guess, yeah, he would need to be like 5 out of 30 instead of 6 out of 30 or something, whatever percentage that is. Yeah, like, if he were about maybe 85% the size that he is, or 80% or something like that, he'd be all right as a doll, and so might the girls. But he's just too big, and that's what I've talked about in that video about why I'm not getting one, which, with all the ridiculous number of dolls that I have, that should not be a big issue. Believe me, I have way too many dolls. I spend way too much on dolls for that one to need to be here. So, I just want to talk about that, how kids about age 7 and up are just not, they don't walk around with little shrunken heads. If you drew a picture of a young child with the same body proportions as an adult, it would look kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? It would look like one of those medieval paintings. It would look like a kid drew it, basically. So yeah, I mean, kids, their head when they're younger is a higher percentage of their body for the simple reason that it doesn't grow much. It doesn't grow, because puberty is all about the growth of the body, not as much the head. The head size doesn't really change that much, and and that's why the memories of my early teens are just so vivid, if not more vivid than the things that just happened yesterday, or the next thing I was going to say in a sentence, hence the stuttering. Um, my memories of age 13 are just so vivid that I could write a book. But instead, I wrote a poem, which I forgot to read.
Was absent May 97. It certainly wasn't heaven. Sick with a cold, almost 14 years old. It wasn't my first, but my pride it did burst. I was in grade 7. It sure was not heaven. Life was at its worst. This cold wasn't my first. I'd had more in grade 6 that I couldn't fix. And I would in grade 8. They sometimes made me late. My teens were not great, and my life I did hate. Was absent May 97. It certainly wasn't heaven. It wasn't my first, but my pride it was burst.
So yeah, I mean, I feel so much more comfortable having an automated voice read it, a man's voice, even though, I'm not a man. Um, but it's just that, I mean, a lot of 13-year-olds think they're smarter than their parents, and to an extent, they're correct. There may be some things that they're smarter about than their parents. I mean, they don't have the life experience, but, like they might be better at computers than their parents, or, yeah, I mean, it depends on the parent. So, yeah, your head, your brain, I mean, yes, it matures, you gain experience, you learn things, but the size does not really change that much, you know, once you get past age 7, and certainly not much once you hit puberty. And that's why, that's how I know that these dolls that are not on a 1/6 scale are not on a 1/6 scale. You know what I'm saying? It all goes by the head circumference and how it compares to a real person or another doll that's on the right scale. Um, and, I just really hate cartoons. The older I get, the more I hate them because I feel like children do not learn, or I certainly stagnated in my drawing skills. But it's like children are, when they get into cartoons to the point of drawing them and they're not proportioned right, they kind of unlearn the right way to draw people. You know what I'm saying? It's like you kind of get sucked into this fantasy world wherein you actually forget that people have an eye color, and that people are proportioned a certain way, and that your head is not this big old balloon on your body, past the age of about 3 or younger, unless you're a baby, and even babies aren't quite that big. Your head is like an increasingly small percentage of your body. And, it's just that I just hate cartoons, and I feel like if I never watch another one of them, especially another episode of Rugrats, I will have already given them too much of my time, and no one can change how I feel. And what I started to say in the other video that I made was that, I mean, they might be able to get away with poop jokes and things like that, but what I found out in high school was that any reference whatsoever to the bathroom or what goes on in there can get you in serious trouble if you work that into a paper. And I just have some horrible memories. I mean, it really shouldn't bother me anymore, because I'd like to think that the teachers and people that I may have written such content for may no longer even remember my name, let alone be thinking about me. But, it's almost like I swear I hate that show Rugrats because I feel like it destroyed my life by it sort of, it breaks down that, when you hear enough of that content on TV and all, it breaks down that mental barrier over time, and you literally forget that such things are so unacceptable. And that's why I hate it. That's the damage that it does. Even if, yeah, we've heard the things that they're saying in other places, and yet it shouldn't really be that bad compared to some other things. But when you break down mental boundaries that should be there, that's a bad thing. If it's not acceptable to write about poop in a paper for your English teacher and she writes inappropriate in red ink, and then, the way I may have mentioned it would have been very mild, you know what I'm saying? Something doesn't even say the word, but just hinting at the bathroom, you know what I'm saying? And in my mind, I still see that word inappropriate in red ink, and it gives me PTSD. And, she just was not happy with that. And, and it just really makes me mad at that show for normalizing such things to the point where you literally forget. You literally forget. It's like it just kind of overrides your knowledge of what's normal and acceptable. The body proportions that real people have, the things you're not allowed to discuss and why. And, it's just not a good thing at all. So, anyway, what I want to end with is I didn't think I had time to take them out of the bag, but here's the man with his Fu Manchu. And here's his girlfriend, and they both have the same kind of shirt, but, she's more of a redhead, and he looks like a bleach blonde. And the last thing I want to talk about is the world of love, and how I don't want to really get these dolls out any more than necessary. But in the 1970s, see, that's why I think I wish I could have been born at least 10 years before I was. There was these dolls, or I don't know if it was the 60s or the 70s. My mom would have been young, but I didn't know about them. But they had like eyelashes, and this doll's name is Love. And they had like virtue names. There was love, there was peace, there was flower, and these were like from the hippie days. And she was the main character. And so the reason I like them, of course, is they're kind of a skipper size doll. They just kind of they're like a teenager, but kind of short. But the first one I ever had, of course, was their one token boy who did not have a virtue name and instead was named Adam. And I didn't know that at the time. But and then I got another version, another Adam, who was in bad condition. He was sold, the person I don't even think knew who he was. But I painted his hair blonde and put glasses on him to make him look different. And I glued a hat. I literally made a hat, to match his shirt. And I glued it on, and I put a pin in there to hold it on. And, his legs basically, well, he's in bad shape. His legs are like falling off and everything. And, his glasses just fell off. But basically, I decided that his name was going to be Will, and perhaps I'll link it below because it makes me cry. But there was this song by, I want to say, Martina McBride named God's Will, and it's just all about this little blonde boy, from about that time period. And he had braces on his legs, and I don't know, he's just a pitiful kid. And it's just a really sad song. She met God's will on a Halloween night. He was dressed as a bag of leaves. But so yeah, I wanted to have a virtue name, and will, the will to do something is a virtue. So yeah, the world of love. And I just wanted to say that you know, you're not born. Oh, and I threw in this kidcore boy of sorts, you know, just so there'd be an equal number of boys and girls. But you see, like, this is a kidcore, so they're bigger than that, but still shorter than, say, a Ken or a Barbie. So they're in between, and that's why I liked them. And it's a long story about that Adam doll. That's basically one of the reasons why I'm living with my dad, because my mom kind of, well, it kind of hit the fan because my mom had kind of made me promise not to buy any more dolls. But as you know, that's easier said than done. Just couldn't pass up that 9.5-inch boy, you know, because that kind of a doll is like about the most rare doll you're ever going to find, is a boy doll that looks school aged of sort. And that's why I liked him. So yeah, just wanted to say that, and how, like, you know, just I just really wish they didn't make so many cartoons that denormalize, you know, the body proportions that are correct. You know what I'm saying? I hate the way the cartoon world has just distorted, you know, like basically the images of people that we're familiar with. And I hate the way that cartoons dominate children's media, you know, until they're old enough, say, for adult stuff or teen stuff. And you know, just wanted to post that video and say that, you know, I like my Mardi Gras earrings, and I'm glad we'll be in March where it'll be normal to have warm weather.